Greetings. My name is Angela George from Chicago, Illinois, and I'm the mother of James George, an adult with Asperger's syndrome who is 23 years of age. We relocated our family to Fayetteville, North Carolina in 2014 to be closer to my oldest daughter and her family. I have an extensive history in the medical profession and currently working on my psychology doctorate degree. I have been the advocate and sole caregiver of my son all his life with an exemplary relationship and track record in high standing with all of James' teaching staff and therapy staff from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. James has his own service dog, Belle, that we added to our family for James to have added companionship and support at home and in the community. James also has two adult siblings, one younger and one older, and one niece, and is expecting a new nephew who could arrive any day. I'm contacting you regarding the misconduct and violation of James's 14th Amendment and civil rights as a disabled adult while living in Grover, North Carolina. I'm bringing attention to the refusal of services by the following DSS Adult Protective Services representative: Tom Inslee, Courtney Moorhead, Shelly Snyder, Megan Carskadden, who is a former employee, and Steve, last name undisclosed, unknown. The timeline of events are as follows. October 15, 2016, we were evacuated from Fayetteville, North Carolina after Hurricane Matthew flooded our neighborhood, and we were transported to safety to Cleveland County, 3 hours away from everything familiar to us. During this process, I lost my job, my vehicle, and many of our personal belongings due to the flooding, and we were being transported at that point to an unknown location for temporary shelter. This is where our nightmare began with seeking services to assist us with our homeless crisis situation. As of December 2nd, 2016, we obtained services from the Abuse Prevention Council in Shelby, North Carolina, where we were provided shelter in a hotel for temporary housing due to James' service dog. There were no shelters that could or would accommodate our family dynamic with a registered service dog. We contacted DSS multiple times, asking for any information they could offer us for services, along with Salvation Army, Goodwill, Catholic charities, and local churches. To no avail, we were turned away from all of the above. We were referred to DSS and other local agencies by Abuse Prevention Council to assist us with transitioning to permanent housing. After being turned down from all other agencies, we made another attempt to request services from DSS APS. I was informed by Courtney Moorhead, Tom Inslee, and Megan Carskadden of the following, and I quote, "We can provide you with 30 days of emergency financial help, and after that you are pretty much on your own. There is not much to choose from along the lines of mental health and disability services in Cleveland County," end quote. At this point, the only income available for us was the SSI disability monthly benefits for James. Courtney Moorhead suggested we use all of James' SSI monies to pay for our hotel room, and they would then provide food. This was not an option due to the strict guidelines outlined by SSI administration that room and board can only absorb 1/3 of the disabled person's income. I then called the county manager's office and expressed my concerns, as suggested by my Abuse Prevention Council caseworker. Moments after hanging up with the county manager, Tom Inslee, who I learned is the supervisor from DSS Adult Protective Services, called me and advised me, quote, not to call the county manager's office complaining about services, end quote. I thought this was very unusual. Despite making multiple requests for additional services, no information was provided to assist us by any of the DSS Adult Protective Services caseworkers regarding Monarch, Partners, or the Ollie Harris Behavioral Health Facility in Shelby. I found this information on my own. We made an appointment as instructed to obtain a housing referral for the Target Key program. We met with Vanessa Butler at Monarch, who was to initiate the housing referral for the Target Key program. Vanessa Butler failed to follow through after we made multiple follow-up calls. By late December, while still residing in the hotel, we were contacted again by DSS Adult Protective Services rep Steve, last name unknown, and Courtney Moorhead. In our hotel room, they requested to speak with James in reference to a call they received without explanation. There was no reason given that prompted the call or what the investigation was about. This is when the harassment began by Megan Carskadden, who was the third DSS Adult Protective Services representative who visited us, stating there are allegations of neglect of a disabled adult. Megan Carskadden was irate, rude, unprofessional, combative during our extensive conversation regarding James. At this point, James was legally his own guardian. Upon ending the meeting with Megan Carskadden and her unnamed co-worker, I shared my projected plan to obtain permanent housing for my family, which included 2 employers who were holding full-time work-from-home positions upon obtaining a permanent residence. At this point, we notified APS, DSS, and First and Families of our change of address. We signed an information release form with Courtney Moorhead and Abuse Prevention Council for permission to share contact information for communication purposes. As of January, within the projected 2-week timeline, we secured a rental trailer with property owner Wayne Allen and obtained 3 full-size beds delivered by Department of Health and Human Services Homeless Transition Assistance Program. We obtained clothing and food from Lori Maddox of First and Families Autism Speak Services. And within 2 weeks of moving into our trailer, local law enforcement and DSS Adult Protective Services began to harass us again with further alleged reports of neglect. Megan Carskadden and her co-worker Steve, whose last name was never revealed, arrived at our home unannounced opened the meeting with allegations of attempting to avoid contact with DSS and Adult Protective Services. In an attempt to recall our previous meeting, I reminded Ms. Carskadden of the projected 2-week short-term plan that was presented to her upon request from our previous December meeting. Approximately 1 week later, Ms. Carskadden informed me by phone the case was closed as unfounded. An additional 2 weeks lapsed, and Ms. Carskadden, accompanied by local police escorts, arrived unannounced to my home. Ms. Carskadden approached me with her finger pointed at my face, began to allege I was unaware of James' whereabouts. I explained and produced a handwritten note from James with the date, time, and his whereabouts. I also shared James is very well versed with navigating the public transit system in his hometown of Chicago since the age of 12 years old without incident. Ms. Carskadden became more irate and more visibly upset, again pointing her finger in my face and shouting and threatening to have James placed as a ward of the state in an undisclosed location, denying him contact with his family. I immediately called DSS after our conversation with Ms. Carskadden, and at this point requested to file a formal complaint. Tom Inslee refused to provide information for filing a complaint and advised me that Ms. Carskadden was removed from the case to be replaced by Shelley Snyder. Tom Inslee and Shelley Snyder and myself conducted another home visit where I was asked to sign a safety plan, of which we already had in place for James prior to moving to our trailer in Grover. Tom Inslee became visibly angry and questioned why I would not sign the behavior plan, and I explained that this is the same as what we already have in place prior to having contact with DSS here in Grover. We have no need to reduplicate efforts, and I informed both DSS reps that James was connected to the appropriate services, and again shared the names of Candace Fewell of Monarch, who facilitated the referral for Donna Boswell to enroll James into the Adventure House program, and we were awaiting the final transportation arrangements. By May 2017, Candace Fewell at Monarch again stepped in and provided the necessary information and documentation confirming James' services were in place with the day program at the Adventure House in Shelby with Donna Boswell. All documentation was provided to DSS APS caseworker Shelly Snyder via fax and email by Candace Fewell of Monarch. Here is where I will stress. James is a high-functioning autistic adult diagnosed as Asperger's syndrome, where is not required for a regular MDE, as his adult transitioning plan has been established and is being executed for him to attend a special college level program designed specifically for college students on the autistic spectrum. This was the catalyst for the following series of events. At this point, Mr. Inslee moved to have my son adjudicated incompetent, placed as a ward of the state, and order a multidisciplinary evaluation, which was not required for James to attend the Adventure House program. However, due to the abuse of power, blatant discrimination, and refusal of services on behalf of DSS APS, dating back to December of 2016, I asked again to file a formal complaint to have Tom Inslee refuse to provide the information for public complaints, which is a direct violation of our rights. At this point, an attorney ad litem by the name of Andrea Leslie Fight was added to the case, who is also the county's attorney assigned to represent James in a competency hearing to make him a ward of North Carolina, which is also a violation of James's constitutional 14th Amendment rights, as well as a direct violation of the Disability Act of 1999. As of May 31st, a motion of hearing was entered to deem James a ward of the state of North Carolina. James was not allowed to speak on his own behalf, advised of his rights, and none of the documentation and evidence we provided supporting that his services were already in place was presented at the hearing. This is a clear violation of his rights, again, as a disabled adult, and a violation of DSS ethics under Purpose and Scope, .0501, Purpose and Scope Ethical Principles. Due to the DSS APS supervisor, Tom Inslee's direct abuse of authority as a civil servant in efforts to cover up their multiple violations of ethics, violations of a disabled adult's rights, and to prevent and block our right to file a formal complaint, took these measures to cover up and censor James's rights as a form of personal punishment in response to my multiple reports of unprofessional conduct and refusal of service by a DSS APS worker. Also, DSS APS representatives Shelly Snyder and Megan Carskadden provided misleading and incomplete reports regarding these allegations of neglect, which were unfounded per Megan Carskadden prior to her removal from the case. Shelly Snyder provided false testimony during the hearing on May 31st, unnecessarily mandating an MDE, which James clearly refused, which is his right under the Constitution, 14th Amendment right, as his own guardian, as well as it is in direct conflict with the guardianship guidelines regarding unwarranted evaluations and unnecessary institutionalization of a disabled person. My son, James, is now in DSS APS custody after being forcibly removed from our home at 5 a.m. on September 22nd by Onslow County Police Department, who also took me into custody without giving me my Miranda rights. James was denied contact with us for 4 days. He has been denied visitors, and what few belongings he was allowed to carry were lost in transport. As of 9/29, we were allowed to have one supervised call, and we learned James is not being fed proper meals. He is held against his will. He is denied contact with his family via phone calls and or internet communication, and the DSS Adult Protective Services caseworker, supervisor, and director refused to explain why an MDE is mandated by DSS. This entire ordeal has been literally a living nightmare. As we are a very close-knit family, I have worked very diligently to educate myself and our family of support to facilitate James's development and growth throughout his life and provide the least stressful home community environment all of his life. This has devastated our family and loved ones who have known and supported James. I'm requesting your immediate attention to this matter for the purposes of accountability regarding the unprofessional and unethical practices of the DSS APS representatives involved. We as a family are petitioning corrective actions to rectify this situation and observe James's rights as a disabled citizen and his wishes to be his own guardian and return home to his family. As a mother and fierce advocate for my son James, I petition you to hold DSS, APS, and the involved parties accountable for the direct constitutional violations against my son and my family and using the Special Proceedings Probate Court to abuse, harass, traumatize, and bully our family and disrupt our right to quiet enjoyment of our home and community while caring for James as a high-functioning autistic adult. I thank you for your time in this matter, and I look forward to your response.